Alright, welcome to part 2 of our video series on making a virtual reality experience. In this video, we're talking all about VR assets, 3D assets, and how to get them into a system like Unity. So we're going to cover where to download 3D assets, how to make them in Blender, how to do 3D scanning, and how to do NeRFs. Because at this point, you can pretty much scan anything you want with your iPhone. You can bring it into a 3D environment. You can 3D print it. So it's a really exciting time to see where technology has taken us. And I'd like to showcase a lot of these different technologies in this video. So sit back, relax, get your popcorn ready, and let's get into part 2 of creating a VR experience, which is all about 3D assets.
This is the construct. It's our loading program. We can load anything from clothing to equipment, weapons, training simulations, anything you need.
Okay, so in part 1 of this video, I left everybody in a big white room with a couch on their VR headsets. So let's get into this and add some more assets to our VR environment. But what we're going to do first is we're going to showcase with an iPhone 13 or 14 or higher how to use a LiDAR scanner and/or photogrammetry and or NeRFs to get 3D assets from a real environment and bring them into a VR or 3D environment. Let's start with Polycam 3D scanner. This is a LiDAR scanner for iPhone 13 and or 14. So just make sure that your iPhone has a LiDAR scanner built into it so you can use this correctly. This is free to download. However, there is a subscription service if you want to export your models out of Polycam. The price per month is $20 or $7 a month if you get a yearly subscription, but it gives you a lot of extra features that you would not get in the free version. Although if you want to just try it out, you can just download it and use it. So for this example, I'm going to scan an adapted Power Wheels car. I did for Adaptaplay. And you know what LiDAR stands for? It's light detection and ranging. So it's basically doing infrared laser scanning or 3D scanning on an object. And in this one, it looks like my friends came to visit, so I'll have to restart. So for this one, you'll see that you can see like the pixels on the screen. So it's constantly scanning here. And you know, the slower and longer we take, the more accurate it is pretty much. But you know, if you're going to compare NeRFs and LiDAR, the NeRF is going to win this battle. And you'll see that in this video. However, you know, this type of scanning does a fairly good job at getting the right, you know, volume and size of an object. But I would say, like, you know, the details of an object aren't necessarily the best. But it is very useful if you're trying to maybe size up a room or size up an object in a room, because with Polycam, after this is done scanning, we can actually use the AR on our phone to actually take a 3D model of what we're scanning and put it in our environment, and I'll showcase that here in a bit. So once your object is done scanning, it will take about 5 to 10 minutes to process, or longer depending on how much you've scanned, the volume of the scan, etc. So just sit back, relax, and let this app do its thing. So here is the 3D scan, and this is a LiDAR scan of the Power Wheels car that we did here for the video. And you can see the details on the wheels. They're not exactly perfect, but I'll show here in a minute that volume-wise it's pretty good, but as for intricate details on this object, not really the best. However, this is a 3D asset, so now we can import this into Blender, we can bring it in a 3D environment, etc. So it's 3D digital information that we can work with. So the AR feature with Polycam is really cool. So basically just move your phone, let Polycam understand where the ground is, and then we can scale our object to 100%. And if I put my scanned Power Wheels car next to the real Power Wheels car, we'll see that the volume, size, height, shape, it's the same. And depending on the angle of the camera, it matches up just about perfectly. So if you want to scan an object in one place and then see how it fits in another, say you're at the store, you see a couch, want to see if it fits in your apartment, you can scan that couch and, you know, bring your phone back to your apartment and see how it looks, right? I mean, that's incredible. So here's a showcase right here, side by side. That's proofs in the pudding here. There's a range of different mesh types you can export here. I'm gonna go with OBJ as it's just an easy import into Blender. It has all the skin details on top of the 3D model, so it's gonna look really good in Blender, and we can do renders with it. We can export it to Unity, Unreal Engine, whatever you want. Now let's talk about Luma AI. This is another app you can get in your iPhone, and it is for NeRFs, or neural radiance fields, and taking photos of an object and making it 3D. And this is based on a concept of light fields, which were talked about in 1996. And this is image-based rendering. So we're taking a bunch of photos of an object, we're putting it through a computational algorithm, which utilizes AI, machine learning, and then we get a 3D output. And the results are very, very good. So we need to do some initial setup before we take a bunch of photos of our object and turn it into 3D. And so Luma AI walks you through everything you need to do. So you're going to go to the front and back of the object, and then you're going to put a bounding box on your object so Luma doesn't, make anything outside of that box 3D. So we only want to do the volume that the car sits in, so we only get what we want with the 3D scan of the object. Once this is complete, Luma will walk you through how to slowly walk around your object, and it's going to constantly take photos of your object as you walk around. So you're going to have a 360-degree view of your object, and it's going to have a lot of photos, and it's going to take those photos and make your object 3D. So you could say that one downside to using Luma and taking NeRFs is you have to take your time. It's very slow. However, there is a different mode in Luma where you can just take like a free video and just walk around more quickly, although the accuracy of your 3D model won't be as good. I mean, it's still honestly pretty good. I've used every type of setting on Luma, and it blows me away every time. It takes about 20 minutes to process, so you have to upload everything. It processes the images and creates a 3D output like what you see on the screen now. And it pans the camera around this 3D scene in a default way. However, it is a 3D scene, so you can change the camera angles and do anything you want with this. So we're going to export this as an OBJ file as well, and we're going to match it up with the LiDAR scan we did, and we're going to put them side by side in Blender. First thing you want to do is import your OBJ file, and so you can upload those to like a Google Drive and then download them and upload them into Blender. And then if you press G, you can grab and move and pan your models to where you want them in your 3D space. And this is the LiDAR scan version, which looks okay. Not too bad, but again, it's not going to be as detailed as the NeRF. And so we're going to import our NeRF as well. And we can see the difference already that, Luma AI really singled out the object I was scanning. And with the LiDAR scan, you have the whole floor as well, so there's model cleanup you have to do. Just want to show the difference in mesh textures with the Luma scan versus the LiDAR. Overall though, these look pretty good, and I think they are ready to be cleaned up, and then we can get them into Blender. So if I go to edit mode, I can just start deleting the vertices here of all the floor parts so I can clean up this model so we can import it. I'm also going to shade smooth to kind of give it a smoother, less triangle shape to the model. And there they are side by side. Not bad overall, especially considering we did this for free on our phone. As for a scene to put them in, I go to a site like Open 3D Labs. Here's a cool alleyway we can put our cars in. We can just append our Blender file. So I'm just going to append the collection to this Blender file, and then we can bring our cars in, move them where we want to move them. So I press G, then I press X to move in the X-axis, move them to the center, and then I'm going to take a render, just a quick photo of these two cars in this alleyway. This is a render with cycles, so you can see that the light is more realistic, and overall this is a great photo. Alright, since we're doing VR, while we're here, let's go to Preferences and Add-ons. And if we go to Add-ons, we can look up VR. And there is a 3D VR view for Blender that's automatically built in with Blender 3.0 and higher. So if you enable this add-on, you'll see it on your dashboard on the right here. And you can just click on Start VR Session. And if you have your headset on and you're connected via link cable or AirLink, you can play around with your 3D models in a VR space, and you can pan, zoom, move around your 3D scene, and get a feel for what it's going to look like when you put it in Unity. Okay, for the final step in this video, we are going to put one of these objects in Unity. I'm going to choose the one from Luma AI. This is an OBJ file that I've imported into Blender, so I'm just going to clean up my scene collection here, get rid of any cameras, lights, etc. And then I'm going to relabel this car, and then I'm just going to import this car into Blender. So I am going to go to the shader tab, and I'm going to look at how the textures are put on this model. I can see that I want to go to File, External Data, and automatically pack resources. This will pack all the textures into the Blender file itself, and then I'm going to unpack the resources afterwards so I can get a folder full of the textures, because I want a separate folder with the textures on this model so I can import both the model itself, the 3D file, and the textures that go with it. Once we've packed the textures, just click Unpack Resources, just say Use Current Directory, although there are several options here. If you use the current directory, it's just going to make a folder called Textures, and then we can import that into Unity. At this point, I'm going to select my object, select Export FBX. On path mode, I'm going to choose auto since I have a folder of textures. And then I'm going to say limit to selected objects, visible objects, active collection. I just want to make sure that it takes everything in my Blender scene and exports it as an FBX file. So if I do auto, I'm going to call it cars. Everything looks good here. I'm going to export FBX. And then I'm going to have Unity open. And then I'm just going to drag and drop the FBX file along with the folder of textures into Unity, and then we can pull it into our 3D scene. So let's pull that in. It'll take a minute to load. And then once done, we can just drag and drop our 3D scan into our VR environment and then manipulate from there. So here we are in our VR environment, still a white room, but at least we have some company. We have a fully fledged 3D scanned object from the real world, and now we can interact with that in VR. So in part 3, we are going to pull in a scene, we're going to pull in objects, and we're going to complete our VR interactive scene in part 3. So it's all going to be about Unity, but now we know how to scan objects and bring them into our environment, which is a really big important step with making VR experiences. And as we do our outro, in no particular order, I'll pull up some sites that have free 3D models, and I will put them in the description below so you have access to many of the links that I use just to download free 3D models and bring them into VR experiences. And as always, if you enjoy content like this, please like and subscribe and support the channel so we can continue bringing you awesome videos like this one. Thanks for watching.